like a little seat.
Nice.
Perfect.
So, okay, we're recording. You're
Okay.
in Florida vacationing, and you're having a good time at the beach. And how are you doing as far as feeling? How do you feel about your body on the beach right now? In the sun?
I feel fine.
No.
I have no and I wear my bathing suit and I don't even think twice about it. I don't care. I don't care. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the sun and the sand and the freedom to just be me, and I don't feel judged. That's the nice part.
Yes, we were just actually saying that the goal would be that even if you were feeling judged, that it doesn't impact you, that
Right.
you're aware enough that the judgment is actually coming from the judgment within others. And so it's really not you that's being judged, it's them projecting the judgment of themselves onto you, right?
Right. I guess they're using me as something to compare themselves to.
Yes. And so it's really a reflection of their survival mechanism, what they think gives them survival, and what they're willing to do to suffer to keep it. And to be honest with you, people who are in their thin supremacy self-righteousness, they may get entertainment out of making others less than them, but they are more concerned about others that are better than them. Right? So this is why people
Right.
who believe they're within the range of their superiority become so critical of others that are in that same zone, right?
Yes.
So they're not as concerned about, the average person. They're concerned about the other hot people because they're competition.
Right. Sure.
So,
and I was caught up in that for years.
Yeah, and you're not even participating at the beach. You're not even in the water. You're not really actually enjoying the environment. Like you take someone who's obese or overweight at the beach feeling bad about it. They assume those thin people are really experiencing the beach. Well, if the thin person is using their thinness as a form of safety and survival, they're more focused on their thinness than they are the actual beach.
So it's working on both sides. The fat person, all they can think of is, I look terrible and I'm so fat, and the skinny person is, am I skinnier than everybody? So neither one of them that are caught up in it are enjoying what's going on around them.
They're not
what's in their head.
Yeah, they're more concerned about comparing themselves to others and assuming others are having a better experience than they are. And wrapped up in the illusion of, at least I'm having a better experience than those fat people. You know what I mean? It's just constantly, they're experiencing their comparisons and the illusions of security in trying to defend their security or to confirm their inferiority. So the point is, you're here at the beach and you're spending time just rolling around in the waves and hanging out in the beach and this whole thing, and you're actually not experiencing your assumptions and perceptions of the body anymore. That should be gone. You should be experiencing the beach.
Right.
I think this is actually really important because when we talk about what is life about, what's the point of being alive and what's the point of living, and how living, when you think about it, what defines living in relation to the body that's providing it for you, right? So the confusion for people who are into body image, positive or negative body image, it's all the same. It's still relating to the body and using the environment of the body superficially, or even the function of the body as a way to define positive or negative, this or that. Our goal is that your relationship with the body is very little to do with the environment of it, but more to do with the condition of consciousness. You could be at this beach, but without consciousness, there is no experience of the beach.
Right. I could be wrapped up in my head in problems that were going on at home, and I might as well be sitting at home if I'm so thinking it over and can't even enjoy what's here.
Correct.
So I could totally see that, where somebody could be, oh my gosh, I got to do this for work, and I got to do that, and my husband,
you're wrapped up in
my kids, and blah blah blah, and you wouldn't even know what was going on around you.
No. So if we are present with the environment we're experiencing, rather than experiencing our body, I want you to think about that. We're not experiencing, rather than our experience being the body.
Which it has been for the last so many years.
Yeah, for
most of my life.
Yeah, for people who are attached to body image, right? What you're describing is someone who's attached to family, work image, marriage image, money image, all the stress of the culture we live in. That's an image of culture. This in particular is body image, right? How we imagine our body to be, and what that being of the body does to our experience. Well, if we look at what provides experience, what is it really? What is it really?
When you are experiencing something, what is it really?
Yeah, like what is experience when you look at it simplistically from what the body is doing?
Just appreciating.
Well, what experience is, okay, I want you to really hone in on what I'm saying. Your experience is you're receiving information. You are aware, you are conscious, and you're receiving information that the body is actually receiving for you. And then the mind is then allowing you to be aware of it. So, for example, you feel the sand. Feel it on your feet right now. I want you to put your feet in the sand, and I want you to feel that. So,
hold on. Let me take my shoe off. Okay, my foot's in the sand.
You're experiencing whatever that is. We don't know. We can just call it sand on my feet.
Yes.
But how do you explain that experience? How do you express the experience of that? It's kind of hard, right? And are you doing that? Is the sand doing that?
No.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? You're doing nothing.
Right. I'm just taking notes.
You're just experiencing or are aware of whatever that is.
Right.
Right? Because we could look at each cell in the foot right now and go, individually, each cell doesn't know it's experiencing anything. The foot isn't aware of experience. I'm somehow experiencing what that feeling is, because the body is giving me there is a reception of it, and I'm consciously aware. If you were asleep right now, would you be aware that your feet are in the sand? No. So there's a consciousness that the body's giving you. So open your eyes. I want you to look at the ocean as it comes in and out. Look at the animals as they go around. So the eyes are receiving information, and your consciousness is aware of that. Breathe in the air. It smells salty, and there's probably moisture, and you're doing nothing. You're literally doing nothing.
Just taking it all in.
Yeah, you're just receiving information, and you're consciously aware. Now we have a subjective, like, we've been taught this is sand, that is the sun, here is the universe, that's a bird, that's a wave. So we have a way to actually identify what that is, but you're really doing nothing, and the body is doing everything to provide you that consciousness. You're not making the body tell you and give you consciousness. The body is just giving it to you for free.
Right.
You've done nothing. Right? So when someone is in a state of, let's just say, in any form of body image, what position is that?
Thinking that I can tell the body what it needs to survive.
Yeah, I'm telling it what to do. I am what it is. I am the eyes that see it. I make the eyes see it. There is a sense of me in it that is doing it all. So one of the most amazing things that I've become aware of in my own recovery is that I've done nothing. The body is doing everything. And what an incredible fun thing to experience. It's freaking cool. Even I look back at labor and delivery with my children. Holy, what the?
Yeah, how did my body know how to spit a baby out? It's never done that before.
And not only that, but it created a human being with eyeballs and with everything that body needs to survive in this environment. It survived inside the body for 9 months, and now it's surviving off my breast milk. What the heck? And I have these nipples that are, it's just the craziest. I've done nothing. I just experience, and I'm just witnessing it. So, it's like your ability to just witness is actually a gift from the body. So we can sit here and get pissed off that we have body fat because the body fat is, separating me from the culture of thin supremacy that I want to be a part of. And then and what happens when you take a position of being a victim of the body, you're essentially saying that everything it's doing for you, it is taken for granted. There's no point to it. It's not worth anything. So you completely block out every aspect of the miracle of your being here. Because you're feeling as if the body has done you wrong, right? So when you go into that position, if that's how you feel, right, about your fatness, what is going to change when you're thinner?
Nothing.
I know. That's because you're not appreciating any of it anyways.
Right. You'll find something else that it's doing wrong.
Well, right. Or you start to, someone else is thinner than you. And so therefore the body is still sucky. That person's better than you. So you're stuck in this kind of this like matrix of complete and total. It's like a different world psychologically. Right. So compare this experience at the beach to previous experiences at the beach. What's the difference after in this recovery process?
The difference is I am perfectly happy to be in the here and now. I'm not worrying about what diet am I going to start when I get home, or why didn't I lose 15 more pounds before I got here, or who's looking at my fat jiggling on my thigh, or I don't care. It's not even a thought going through my head. It's not. And I'm thrilled about that, Robin. I really am.
Is this what you thought it would be? When you reached out to work with me, were you aware that this existed?
I didn't know if I could be here. I know you've helped other people, and I felt like I was just going to die, and I had to do something.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing. Because you're not selling me anything. You're not telling me you have to follow this plan. You have to do exactly what I tell you to do. You just put it out there and helped me to figure it out. And
it's worth it, isn't it?
I'm very grateful. It's very worth it.
Yeah, and it's so easy. That to me was
easy, and I remember you saying, "Well," I said, "Well, it's not like I can flip a switch." And she said, "Well, yeah, it is." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure it is." But you're right. If you allow the switch to be flipped, it can.
Well, but that to switch the flip or to flip the switch feels like death. Feels like you're flipping death. You're like, I could die. It's a weird. I don't know about for you. But when I flipped that switch, it was like jumping off of a cliff because you don't know what's on the other side of it. You just know the side you're on is basically dying. You're dying.
Yes.
This is it. I can't continue. It's either suicide or I'm going to lose my soul is compromised at this point. Not just the body, my entire sense of soul is dying,
Yes.
And so that switch that you and I are talking about, that you've heard me say to other people, and it happens like this. All it takes is this to surrender or to jump off this cliff is you have to have the humility to say this is failing and I have failed and surrender. So then you go into the space of what's the risk of being fat at this point? Because what I'm doing is terrible. It's horrendous. I can't do it anymore. So you jump because there's no alternative. Really, the alternative is no longer worth it.
There you are. Wait a minute. Something just cut off a second.
I said, so the what you've been doing isn't working anymore. There's no value to it. So what's the risk of going into what you're afraid of?
Nothing. There is no risk because I feel like my soul had died, and next was my body was going to die, and I didn't even care.
Yeah. Don't you find it fascinating that it's this amazing sense of, well, like you're quitting. You quit.
I quit the fight.
Yeah, that's the switch. I quit. But it's not a quitting that is like, I suck, I'm a piece of shit. Right? You don't go into self-loathing. Would you agree?
I agree.
The key to this is quitting and realizing that it's for the better.
Yes.
And
it was
we
like
don't
a
even
window has opened and the fresh air has come in and
yeah, because we don't even know what the better is. You don't know what the better is when you quit. It's not like you're exchanging. It's not like you know what you're gonna get when you quit. You know.
You just know it can't be any worse than where you are.
Yeah, and if it is worse, I would rather take whatever I'm afraid of on the other side. So even if on the other side I don't know what it is, it can't be worse than this. So even if it's bad, what I'm doing is worse. So I can't imagine even if it is as bad, it's a lateral move. So at least I tried.
Right. I did something because it's not working the way it's going.
Yeah. And so all I'm doing on this side is a guide, because I'm not doing it for you. You have to do it, as I'm saying, try this out. And the willingness to do it. It's like, and what I'm telling you to do is to be willing to do what you've been running away from.
Right.
I want to be.
Yeah.
So what you've been running away from is being fatter.
All my life.
Right? So all I said was go into being fatter. Think about that. What happens if you are fatter? What if the natural body you're in is fatter? What do you get out of that?
Peace in the head.
Well, and you get, as long as you're not, well, the key here, and I do have to say it's multidimensional, so that's one part. But the most important part is that you forgive the body from the thin supremacy. So many people get caught in this process at, all right, I accept being fatter, but I feel like I'm gonna be a loser the rest of my life because fat people are losers. Right? So they hold on to that stigma. They hold on to the judgment. So that means, so if they accept fatness, they're going to be holding on to the shame permanently. This is different, isn't it?
It is different. It's not that at all.
Because you were willing to look at the thin supremacy as a belief and to untwist and unwind it as a wrong belief. You don't believe it is right anymore.
Right, and it's not like you're telling me, well, just go eat as much as you want and have fun and pig out and gain weight and who cares, just get over it and get used to your fat body. It's not what you're telling me.
No, because that would be still obsessed around the body.
Right.
We're just saying, let it just be what it is. Just
right. I'm surrendering control over it.
Yeah, what that does...
No matter what, where it takes me.
Yeah, so what that does, this kind of brings us full circle to what we started talking about 20 minutes ago. What that does is it brings you back to what is then how do you relate to your body? So it's like saying I have to re-identify who I am in relation to this body. So if I am blacking out the conditions of the body from my ownership, right? So remember when we said, well, with body image, you are the owner. It is you. You're the one seeing. You see the ocean. I feel the sand. Well, when we block out body image, you're not doing anything. The body is giving it to you. You are now the receiver versus the giver. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my body's giving me a gift.
Yeah, and you just sit back and allow it to happen rather
That's
than...
right, and appreciate it, that it's still giving me gifts and taking care of me.
And don't you agree that from this position, it is more than you ever thought possible?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I was saying when I said, could you have imagined it being this way when you reached out for help? Did you even comprehend that this was what recovery was?
No.
You just knew, I'm in misery. I'm in misery, and I'm clearly not functioning well, and there's problems, and I can see what I'm doing is there's no exit. I'm in a trap. The illusion is that there's an exit. The illusion is that if I continue to diet, I will get out. The illusion is that if I'm thinner, this freedom will happen, right? Don't you agree? That's what you were chasing. This fantasy, the fantasy of thin supremacy, is that you get this freedom. So there's an awareness unconsciously that this freedom does exist. You just attached it to people being thinner.
Right.
That thinnerness brings it. Well, actually, if that's what you believe, you don't get the freedom, you get thinnerness.
Right. And
that's all you think about.
It's just like a thing dangling in front of you that you're always chasing after, and you never really get there.
It's a trap. It's a trap. Mm-hmm. You don't know it. You didn't know it. You were in it for years, not knowing it, until you realized, I am never going to get out. There's no exit. That is really hard. I remember when I realized there's no exit, that's when I decided to commit suicide. Because I couldn't imagine an escape. I wanted to escape. I would do anything to escape, but except for give up the thin supremacy. That's what I didn't consciously see until I was in the process of dying, right? The process of reconciling my life. I realized, oh, well, I'm willing to kill myself because I'm not willing to gain weight. Interesting. So there is an escape. Yeah. There was a moment.
When you're caught up in that, that is your exit. Death is your exit.
I know.
It shouldn't be.
Well,
I've been there, Robin. I tried. I've never told anybody this. 3 years ago, I tried to kill myself, and it didn't work. Nobody knew. So I went out in my car. I listened to the radio for about 10 minutes, and it was cold outside. So here I'm sitting in my car trying to get up the nerve to start the car in my garage. I turned the key, and the car would not start. Because I had been sitting in the cold listening with the radio, I drained the battery down. And then I just felt humiliated that I couldn't even succeed at that. And I came back in the house because my husband wasn't home. And I've never told anybody that.
I understand. In my opinion, the suffering is so bad that it's kind of worth it. So I don't... Yeah.
I don't even know what you heard that
I heard it all, and I was just saying to you that I understand it. Like, I've been there. To me, it feels it's worth it. Don't you agree? It's like, well, no shit. If it's that bad and you cannot find a way out, life is bad. That's not okay. You shouldn't live that way. It doesn't. This is why I really feel compassion for people who commit suicide, who actually it works. To me, it's like, well, yeah. You don't just There's a difference between someone who's committing suicide to revenge, that's narcissism, or because, this is pretty dark and you're in hell. It's like living in hell. Like, yeah, we live in purgatory. That's purgatory. So if that's, what you're doomed to, there's a real relevance to ending it. Now, the crazy thing at this point is you can see, and I saw it too when I was willing at the bottom, when I connected the dots between dying, suicide, and gaining weight, I saw there was an exit that didn't require suicide.
Right.
And I had to sit in that space. I don't know honestly how long I was in this space. This is when I'm like, it had to have been a near death, or it had to have been, I don't know what it was, the out of body, whatever. And realized letting my body be what it was, and surrendering my survival to the body, basically, was no different than killing myself.
Right.
You get that now. And
I get it, all right.
The willingness to just surrender the body is like willingness to die. Because it's no longer my control, it is the body's. But it's the same as pulling the trigger. So why don't I remember in my mind thinking, why don't I just try that first? And that's when I went into life being morbidly obese, and the will to do that. If it means that I am free, in the process of, again, I don't know how this happened. I only have context now, 20 years later, to explain it. So I look back and I can see that basically what I was doing was committing suicide to the small survival Robin. When we look at survival and how we identify who we are, I had attached my body as who I am. And so if my body is perceived as bad, that means I am bad. If my body is perceived as good, that means I am good. And so essentially I had to kill to transcend it, Robin, the survival Robin, which was, I had attached to thinness because that's what was that's the common good body. Right? And so I've never returned to that Robin. I will never be that Robin again. Right? That's the small ego, pride, shame driven survival Robin, if you want to call it that. So when you come out of that, it's like losing your entire identity. And that's what you have to be willing to do to get out of it. So you and I are talking now in a totally different, like I would assume with your recovery and going through that, you are not the same person.
Right.
At all. Same body.
Not at all.
Same persona. Yeah. Like you have the same essence. The soul now is alive. No, so your soul becomes alive and the whole ego or survival brain or survival animal in you is dead. We could pull it back up.
I don't want to pull her back.
Right? Why would you do that? Like, holy shit.
Or never look back.
Because here's what you realize. When you jump off that cliff, committing suicide to the survival identity, what happens is you realize it was an illusion. Mm-hmm. That's what I find amazing. And that's what I remember thinking, like, oh my God, it was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. And looking back to a few years ago, you almost killed yourself over a lie. Mm-hmm. For nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? For nothing. That to me is amazing, because when you're in it, it is everything and it is real. And you are in Dante's Inferno. You are in hell. This is purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
And that is real. But it's based on like this alternative perception that does not exist in reality.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is why it makes no sense. Like when people get here, when they arrive and they are conscious and aware of what it took to get here, when it is permanent, because that's the key, I think, to this sticking is the permanence and the willingness for your relationship with the body that is giving you awareness and consciousness. When you make it unconditional, and that includes it will die and you will accept that too when it comes. It's just it's amazing.
I can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Well, basically, it's just like the switch flips. Bing! Yep. All of a sudden, you're like, the world is magnificent.
Yep, the darkness has just lifted.
Yeah, and why would you go backwards? That's what I was gonna say. When you get there,
oh God.
It's
I don't ever want to go back there again.
And to see that it's a choice. It's a choice. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I choose not to go back there.
Well, you not only choose, but it doesn't make sense anymore, because you recognize that the willingness to surrender. And what I learned is that coming out of that is, as things arise, you surrender them as they arise. You don't wait for yourself to suffer to surrender it.
Right.
Something that arises, I surrender it before it even gets anywhere. So I just don't attach. So, for example, as I move forward, as I experience life and its changes. So, like I'm writing this book that will hopefully be published in the next few months. I surrender everything as it's occurring, so I can write it authentically. So I surrender to the fact that it's not going to be well understood. I surrender to the fact that it's going to be criticized by science. Anything possible. I surrender that people will think it's a shitty piece of work. That my writing is going to be terrible. That how I'm explaining it is insufficient. Like I'm going into it I am surrendering to the infinite possibility. I'm also surrendering any benefits of it as well, because I'm not doing it for that reason. So this could change my career path into being a public speaker. I surrender that. Right? So I don't want to be attached to any outcomes in any way. That way I can, so the benefit for me is that I'm expressing it right now. And that's truly all I am getting from it. Because I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to write a book unless it does something for me. I'm human. So what am I?
Right.
What is it doing for me?
You should get joy from it, whatever that is to you.
Well, what it is.
Just releasing it or whatever.
As it's occurring. Correct. So you see how I've learned in my own recovery process that I will stay intrinsic with it, and when it's over and done and complete, it's over and done and complete. The outcome is not my business. I don't care. I'm not attached to that. I have nothing to do with its outcome. All I'm involved in is the actual moment, the feeling forms in my space, and I have words that I use to describe it, and then I type it on this computer. And that's what I get out of it. And it's the joy of getting it out. That's how I felt about Weight Loss Apocalypse. I just want this out. I'm done talking about it. I'm done thinking about it. I'd like to get it in a form of expression. And from there, people can do what they want with it. I don't even care.
Well, I guess for you, too, you knew that that's what saved your life. And it was just a matter of putting it out there, like you said, just for your own benefit, not because you thought you were going to make millions off of it, or you just needed to do it for your own survival.
Yeah,
or
and
recovery
actually,
or whatever.
well, and when I recovered, I remember at the time, because it is so like, what the hell just happened to me? And this was all a farce. This was a lie. I knew there were millions or thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people suffering the way I was for an illusion that it was fake. And I had this burning feeling inside of me that I wanted people to know. But I remember immediately thinking, I had that feeling, and the next feeling was that might not be my role. So all I know is that whatever this was for me, it may have been very sacred and personal. Didn't need to be expressed. And I remember, I don't know why this is making me emotional, but I remember feeling at peace that if it is meant to be that I'm to express this and to explain it to someone, it will come to me. I will not make it happen. And that's what happened. I didn't intend to get a YouTube channel and I'm going to talk about my recovery and I'm going to work with people who have eating disorders. That is not how this happened. It started with, here's this HCG protocol and wow, I'm watching these people and I can see what they're doing and oh my God, I know exactly what they're doing. I've done that and I just started to help them process through things. And all of a sudden I'm writing a book and I'm like, oh, you know what? It would probably help people if I recorded these conversations. Maybe it will help others who are processing the same way. So I'll just throw some YouTube videos out there. So my point is that you learn to not control anything. Doesn't mean you don't have an idea and you don't follow through with it. Doesn't mean that you don't aspire for anything. Just means that you realize that you don't need whatever you're aspiring to, which allows it to happen. If it does, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't happen. So you stay unattached to it and you're living in a constant state of joy because nothing is needed. As long as you're, even when it comes to the body. Again, do I need to have eyesight? No. Do I enjoy it? Yes. Do I need to, no, because the willingness to adapt is from within. Like that's my will. That's something I do have is will. No one can take that. They can take my body. They can take my eyes. You can take everything. But no one can take the power of my will, which I have infinite choice and a capacity. Even if I am rejected and abandoned to the point where there is no human contact, I have the ability to connect with nature. I can still feel connected on this planet. I'm connecting with Mother Earth. I don't need another human being. If it requires I suffer for it, I'd rather not. Right? So do you see how far you can go in this process of letting go? So where life is infinite, there's an infinite potential rather than a pinhole aspect of what it is and what it's not. Right? If what you believe it is a pinhole, that means everything is not. Right? That's kind of like body image. It's like looking at life through a pinhole and all you see is that life is really nothing. Where in reality, it's like, well, if you get rid of the pinhole, you'll see that life is everything. Infinite experience. You can sit at a beach and experience a beach because consciousness allows you the awareness of it. And the body gives you different aspects of sensory. You can sense it from a bazillion different aspects. If someone's blind on the beach, they hear it, they smell it. It enhances in a different way. So someone listening to this video, what would you recommend if they hear this and they're like, these women are smoking something? What would you say to someone who is listening to this going, they sound like they're in a dream?
I guess just enjoy the dream. Be present and just, I'm sitting here, I heard a little bell on a bike chinging as it went by. I feel the little breeze on the back of my neck. Like it's all stuff that I never really noticed before. Just notice what's going on around you and enjoy it and be grateful.
How did you get here?
By surrendering.
What did you surrender?
I surrendered the need to control everything.
And so to do that, you had to accept what?
I had to accept who I am. I'm all I got, Everybody else in my life could walk out on me, but this is all I got. And I have to love it for what it is and just accept it.
Which means you accept death.
Yeah.
Right? If we get down to it, it's like I accept death. When you do that, what happens to your fear of anything?
You're just free. You're not afraid of dying anymore. You're just free. Nothing holds you down anymore.
Yeah, so if someone walks by and says, you are a piece of shit, you're a failure. What if it was your husband? What happens now?
I still have myself, and I just would know that I've gotten myself this far.
Yeah, so if that happens, I will adapt. If that's
right.
How he feels, that's what he should do. He should find someone that doesn't make him feel that way. Okay, Sarah, I can handle that. Sure, I'll feel grief, but I'm not afraid of grief anymore. Grief is not, it is something I can handle. I can handle that. Whereas before you couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle it. Now you can handle it. So it changes how you perceive everything, how you respond to everything. And then it also, moving forward, you now are creating. You're creating out of it now instead of reacting with it now.
Yeah, it's like instead of trying to put a lid on something, I'm taking the lid off and letting everything just go where it may. And I don't mean in a reckless way. I'm not acting crazy and out of control, just like free to be alive.
Yeah, well, the crazy out of control is what you ended up doing. You could say that's what I was doing, trying to control everything. So now I'm just allowing it to happen organically, willfully accepting the losses and failures and then now I'm no longer pursuing something outside of my reality. So if you think about it, don't you agree this is as simple as telling the truth? It's like the game you played before was like, it's like trying to lie about who you are. It's like lying about it. So the moment you're willing to go into the truth of whatever it is, you don't even know what it is. You just know that whatever it is what it is, and I'm done trying to pretend it's something it's not. That's when there's so much freedom because you're honoring whatever that is. For the first time, you honor that. And the actual act of honoring it is very empowering of it. It is where you transition out of survival into those higher states of human consciousness. So you're relieved of all of those symptoms, right? The paranoia, you're relieved of the all or nothing mentality that was so people identify down there with it. I'm all or nothing, I'm type 1. They identify by the symptoms of someone and not surviving well. They're in the negative aspects of the human survival space, which is a lot of work, right? The moment you tell the truth of reality, it's kind of like now you live in reality, which is a very beautiful place to be in. It's so much, it's like time is like way different. Same time, same amount of, but your perception of it is different.
Right.
You know, it's not forced. Like we're not trying to do this. You didn't read a self-help book. You're not following what they told you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural on this side. It's like,
And the funny thing is, now that I'm here and I've seen things unfold on how they would be, I realized I wasn't really so bad after all. Like, I'm okay with what's left.
right? Because it was a relative perspective of loss, but it was relative to this fantasy that was out of reality. It's so high, it's like, no wonder you felt bad about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny, it makes me think, I watched a video of you talking to someone, and she said, well, what kind of results can you promise me? What are your stats? Or what? And I saw you getting like upset, and I thought, why is she getting so upset? The lady's just asking her how good. But now I understand exactly from this conversation. It's not you succeeding.
Right? It's like you proved to me that
with some options, and I'm choosing to take them, and I'm succeeding. Because we could hang up today, and I could never speak to you again, and it's kind of over. Like, I can't expect you to take me like a little puppet and just work me for the rest of my life.
And show you proof.
I have to learn to stand on my feet and walk on and be grateful for this time that we had together and just move on from here. It's not you forcing me to do something. And now I get it why you got upset with that woman. Well, what do you mean? Like, you want a money back guarantee? Like, what are you asking me here?
Yeah, like it's me that's taking the pride of, I'm amazing. Like, she was projecting her pride and ego onto me as if that's what I was doing. Really? Mm-mm.
Right, and I understand she probably wasn't doing it from a conscious place either.
Nope, not at all, because she wasn't questioning that thought process.
On every diet ever that came down the pike, what makes yours so different? Like, you're kind of defensive even, like, well, how are you going to fix me? Every other miracle that came along never fixed me. I got to fix myself, and I'm realizing that.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to take any responsibility. It's not me that's failing, it's you. You're the freaking failure.
Right.
So if you fail again, it's because of you. So it's that perspective, again, that it is outside of me. That comes from the illusion when you are in those spaces of survival, that it is not my responsibility. That my suffering isn't my responsibility either. So when you are in that victim position, it's understandable why you would assume then that your recovery is not your responsibility either, that it must come from outside of me. So I'm paying you.
We want to blame everybody else.
So if someone pays me, they think, well, how good is she at helping people recover? Well, it's relative to where that person is and their willingness to recover.
Right.
It's nothing to do with me.
The money was nothing compared to the other option. Suicide was the other option, and the money's nothing, because you can't take the money with you, that's for sure, and it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't matter. If it allows you to live again, I could have drained my entire savings, and that's where I'd be. At least it would save my life.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of people are when they check themselves into rehab centers. Unfortunately, the rehab centers also believe your recovery is outside of you. They think that you're diseased, which is really unfortunate when you think about that. Can you see why that might be in and of itself limiting in people's recovery?
Right, like you can't help what's happening to you. It's something that just you were struck with, and
permanently.
Here's something to fix it, you don't have any options. And
you'll get relief when you just follow these programs, you eat on time, you eat these foods, and you just do exactly what the dietitian tells you, and then you're free.
And it's such a lie.
Yeah, I mean, and the suicide rate is pretty high. It's understandable.
Yeah, sure it is.
Death by
that you were given the key to the door, and you still can't manage to step through the door. because you failed, you fucked it up again somehow.
Yeah. All you got to do is surrender.
That's right.
And the willingness to fail, the willingness to be seen as inferior, the willingness to be looked at as a loser for people. I mean, the willingness that just all it takes is humility and complete and total surrendering, which means that you are experiencing the feelings of loss and you do nothing. And the amazing part about it is as you do nothing, you are actually developing the ability to experience loss. That part to me is also just miraculous, is the moment you are willing to surrender to these feelings of failure, loss, uselessness, worthlessness, and you do nothing. The act of doing nothing ultimately is the act that gives you the ability to handle it. Doing nothing is the ability to handle it.
So I have a question. People at work, like a couple of people said, "Wow, you look like you've lost weight," and I'm like, "Oh, great."
Well, doesn't matter. Does it matter?
I said, "Well, I just stopped dieting."
Yeah.
I stopped dieting.
Yeah, and
like,
I just don't care.
Nobody said, "Well, then what are you doing?" You know, like it just was like, oh, like they weren't sure what I meant by like. But is that like a reasonable? I mean, I'm just being honest. And you asked me if I had told my husband, and I had said I didn't, but I did tell him that I'm seeing or talking to you. Because I felt that's one more thing that I'm tired of lying about. I'm just trying to be honest.
Yeah.
And he was totally fine. Like, oh, well, that's good.
Whatever you need to do.
That you need to do, right?
Yeah, he cares about you. So if he really loves and cares about you, he will. If you need that work, he has no idea. And this is what I remember too. My parents, my family had no idea that they had no clue.
Right, and that's not something I don't think I'll ever be able to fess up to.
And you don't need to. To me, that was very private. I didn't talk about it until I started recording these videos. I didn't even tell my husband. Never told my parents. I finally told my mom after she was diagnosed with brain cancer, because I did not want her to pass away without me reconciling and telling her what happened in that out-of-body experience, which she was a big part of. You know what I mean? So it's not something you really need to tell anybody. It's a very sacred, private experience that you've had. I feel the same way about mine. I just talk about it now because I'm coaching people through it. How do I know what I know?
If you didn't talk about it, who knows where I would be right now? Because it saves people from whatever.
Yeah, because there's something around, there might be hope, even if you don't know what it is or that it does exist or even what it feels like. You don't even know how to do it. The awareness that, okay, so if she was that bad and she was feeling that way and I feel connected to that and I didn't know anybody else felt as dark and demonic as I did. And she's describing it in a way no one's ever described it before. I will listen. Because they can hear truth in whatever she's saying, At least truth for me. Doesn't have to be truthful for everybody. So,
sure, and some people just won't ever get it. That's why I think I'm afraid to tell anybody, because I just don't think most people could handle that.
Well, they don't.
And they're going to look at you and go away like, oh my God, she's crazy.
Well, what do you get out of telling them that?
Right. I think it would cause distance, not closeness.
Yeah, see, this is where when I recovered, I remember thinking this may not be for other people to know. Maybe they need to figure this out. Maybe it's not my role to save everybody. So I kept it private for a long time. And I never really had the words or context to explain it either. And so over the course of the last 6 years, I've really tried to hone in on how to explain this. What happened to me? How did that happen? What are the steps that occurred? How do I explain that? How do I transfer this into this person's language and that person's experience? I'm still struggling to explain it. So and I still feel that it's not my business to explain it It's the other person's business to grasp what
to
they
receive it.
correct.
Yeah. So you can only put it out there, and if people can use it, great. And if they don't, if they want to leave it behind, that's great too.
Yeah, because it's only going to be useful for someone who is in a space that it is useful for them, and it's none of my business whether it's useful or not. Mm-hmm. I don't get anything out of it. I got out of it what I needed 20 years ago, and that's been it. I don't need it anymore. Mm-hmm. Again, you notice how in this language I'm still staying detached. That's how powerful that experience was for me, to where I learned the lesson. I will never attach again if I can help it. Mm-hmm. If I'm aware, I will not do it again. I would rather lose everything physical than to go back into Dante's Inferno at the bottom in permanent, non-escapable loss. Because that's where we were.
Yeah, and I get it now. Because when you first started asking me, well, could you go to this place? Well, yeah, I can go there as long as. And there was always this one little, well, as long as I don't gain anything.
Right.
Well, yeah, I'm okay if I don't ever lose again, but as long as I don't gain anything. But like now, I just know. I just know.
Wouldn't you
that
rather
this feeling is so much more valuable than worrying about the feelings of other people and what they rate my importance on looking at me.
Wouldn't you rather be the fattest person in the room?
If it meant having this peaceful feeling, yes.
Correct. And that's what I mean. If it means this freedom, that's easy.
Yes.
If someone said you have to cut your feet off for this freedom, I would volunteer. I'd be like, okay. What are the use of feet? Sure, it makes it easy to walk. I don't mind. There's a tool of using a wheelchair. At least if I have this life or consciousness, there's a lot I can experience in life. As long as I'm conscious and aware, that's all I really actually need. Because I have a will that can take something from consciousness and create a bazillion different things. I don't have to have feet to be happy. Feet just makes moving around easier.
Sure, and there are some people bound to a wheelchair that are much happier than the healthiest person on feet walking around can be.
Correct.
I've met people that are physically perfect, and they're the most miserable people in the world.
Yeah, focusing on that perfection, because that's their life.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize that underneath that is imperfection that they're trying to fix. So they're constantly living in a state of deprivation and loss. They never really actually live or transcend that. The illusion is that they are lying to everybody that they're happy, but you and I both know they're not. Mm-hmm. How can you be happy doing that? There is no happiness. Mm-hmm. Happiness doesn't exist. It's an illusion of happiness that you're chasing. You know, not to say that people don't find these levels of enlightenment or joy in a thinner body. They just only can access it by surrendering the thinner body, as it is useless information. It's absolutely useless information. There's nothing relevant to the fatness or thinness of the body you're in at all. Now, you see that now, right?
Oh yeah, and it like all of our sessions, whether I think this is like 4 or 5, it's been like prying off one finger of a time, me gripping to this, and it's just me letting go one finger at a time.
You know what's amazing?
Finally, I'm let go and not hanging onto it anymore.
And you know what's amazing too is what you were gripping onto was so bad you were willing to commit suicide to get rid of it. Mm-hmm. You know, so you're gripping onto what? It's something so horrible and horrific. It's a nightmare. But you attached, right? But you attached your identity to it. That's who I am. It's like, well, and that's why that is why you suffered so deeply.
And that fear that you talk about jumping off the cliff. Well, if this is who I am, if I let go of that, who will I be?
Yeah, and that is exactly what it feels like. And what if I don't exist? What if there is no existence? What you've got to do in that moment is look at the existence of the horror you're living in versus the fear of an existence you're not aware of. And you have to witness that what you're living in isn't worth living for.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the risk of jumping off that cliff into nothingness?
There is no risk.
There is none.
No. Because it can't get any worse. It cannot get any worse. It can only be, like you said, a lateral move or better.
Yeah, and it still could be bad. And I remember thinking that. This could be a lateral move or it's going to be bad. It's just not going to be as bad. I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
It was worth...
'Cause I'm out of options.
Yeah. And once you jump, you realize it was an illusion. Like, it was a form of weird psychological projections from something that doesn't even exist. Because once you jump, you're in existence and you're in reality, and you're like, whoa, nothing's changed. The body hasn't changed.
I'm still the same person.
I'm relating to the same people. I have the same job. My husband's the same, but everything is now very different. It's like it starts to illuminate. Everything is illuminating. Green is still green, but now it's illuminating. Blue is still blue, but it's majestic. It's like you're on LSD, but you don't take LSD. I've never taken LSD. I can just imagine that that's what it's like.
Yeah.
The tree now is just magnificent. The trees are glowing and they're alive and they actually have consciousness. That was weird. I lived in that space for about 2 years.
But it's a wonderful weird.
It is. It just is beautiful. It's very loving too. I remember too walking around campus where 3 hours or whatever it was the morning before, feeling judgment and shame for people and the way they looked and being in a very dark place. And coming out of that was like everybody was so beautiful. The same groups of people that I was judging and fearing because they had all these piercings and wearing black leather clothes and, you know, the gothy look. I was now falling madly in love with them from a
different
heart.
Perspective.
They were shining to me. There was this incredible beauty. I could feel it. There was a feeling of it. And I wanted them to know. And I just, what do you walk up to some stranger and say, you are brilliant? You're amazing. This is there's beauty coming out of you. Like, oh my God. I lived in that space for a long time. It went away I'm pretty sure when I had kids. I know it exists, but I wonder too if when you have children, there's part of your animal brain that has to function. All of a sudden, their life now becomes your survival. I'm not judging it in any way. The only way I'm assuming to get out of that is to accept they're going to die, which I'm not there yet.
Yeah, really.
I am and I'm not, you know.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Anyways, well, welcome. Welcome to this space.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You did it. I just said, here you go. And you said, okay.
Well, you held my hand and you showed me the path, that's all.
Yeah.
And I thank you for that.
You know who you could thank is whoever did it for me. For reals, because I'm like, whatever that was.
I would say, can you, like, in your mind, identify someone that held your hand and kind of pulled you through, or no?
There was no one.
So it was like people, just anybody who would just happen to be in your life at that time, maybe a little piece of each thing, or.
You know, my dad kind of set my father unknowingly, because he didn't know that I was so close to suicide. He said, Robin, keep in mind my father is a master's in psychology and he's like incredibly gifted. he said to me, Robin, you're going to have to face what you're afraid of, and you need to realize that it's not going to kill you. That one thing kind of forced me into thinking. I'd already, when we had that conversation, I'd already decided that I was going to commit suicide. So I think that might be why I was in a space of just listening to him. He didn't know that was my way of saying goodbye. He had no idea that when I was calling him, I was saying goodbye. He had no clue. So, but what it took for me to get to this space, there was no human being involved. All I can say is that there was a process of dying that went into it. And in that, the space of it, there was this guidance that was happening that I don't know where it came from. Other than if I were to speak in terms of spirituality, there was some God being in my space. There wasn't a human body. There was just awareness that occurred that there was guidance. Like my thoughts were being guided. I heard them as my thoughts. I heard them as my own inquiries, my own thoughts of what if I were to be fat. I had some actual perceptions and visions in this, which make me think it was somewhat out of body. So at some point I'll write about this or I'll do a video about my experience. And at the time I didn't know what was happening. So again, this took me going back, 15 years later and looking at it like, how did this happen? How did I come out of that? What was it that specifically, what were the things that specifically were important to these awarenesses that shifted my space of being, and I still struggle to explain it.
Well, I imagine that's why you need to put it down on paper to make sense of it for yourself.
Yeah, well, and how I'm making sense of it for you. How did I guide you to do it? I can't even tell you at this point how I've done it with you or with everybody else that I've been able to somehow express something in a way that you connected with it to where you did it, right?
Well, I guess just showing that it can be done is huge.
Mm-hmm. Right? And that it's this miraculous. There's no drug, there's no pill, there's no narcotic that can do this at all. Because this is real. It's not an illusion.
And the funny thing is, it was there all along. I just never knew it.
Right? That is funny.
It's like I've been carrying it around with me for all my life, and I just never knew to open that little envelope or that little part of my brain. Or
It's like you've been looking
I've been
through.
searching for it all my life.
It's like you didn't know you were looking through a straw, and then I just said, just remove the straw.
And then there it was.
Yeah, and you're like, oh. Why would you go back to that view?
God, you'd have to go back to that.
Yeah. All right, my dear, I gotta go.
Okay, well, thank you.